Be an active participant in the show. Listen in, call in at area code 347-215-8967 with your questions or comments. We are talking about the bastardization of African American indigenous spiritual systems. And today we're going to talk voodoo, but we're also asking, can you do voodoo? And the reason for this show topic is because a great deal of talk happens within our community, around our community, as it relates to not only voodoo, but traditional African systems, religious systems, philosophies in general. And at the end of the day, what matters most as it relates to us as a people, as it relates to voodoo, and as it relates to history, is action, activity, mobilization, doing something. It's one thing to have a belief, it's one thing to have an understanding, it's one thing to philosophize, if you will, but it's another to then move the next step in not only organizing, because you can organize and still have people not fulfill their role, fulfill their responsibility, fulfill their duty. So when we talk about the bastardization of our traditions here in America, at some point we have to talk about the why, the how, and for what end. And to sort of oversimplify it, because we will talk about it in great length over the next coming days, but to sort of simplify it for clarity, we're really talking about fear. There is and has not been any other mindset, spiritual tradition, philosophy, particularly as it relates to a community or a people or an ethnicity or a group, that has had any more stronger effect on the Western world than voodoo. We owe revolution, civil rights, organizing, grassroots to voodoo. We can easily trace back to the Haitian Revolution and its profound effect, not only on the slave owners and the governments of that time and the people of that time, but also on its much deeper primal fear level effect on this society, and help to establish a continuing fear of us as people, and particularly our culture, and more so indigenous spirituality and tradition, as it relates to voodoo, hoodoo, conjurer, root working. I cannot think of any other system, politically, religiously, socially, that has had a more fearful and profound effect on this culture and society than voodoo and Obeah has had in the so-called New World. And this continues to affect us in profound ways, even today, in terms of what is allowed to be propagated within society, within our communities, but also what we ourselves propagate, what we ourselves promote, what we ourselves speak of in serious tones out loud in public, and then to internalize that and have that have a bearing on our behavior. So the fear of the religious beliefs and systems began, I'm sure, with the very first attack, with the very first enslavement, with the very first load of cargo, if you will, that was brought here to the New World. There is no more empowering thing than belief. Some of you even have a misunderstanding that belief requires no facts. And to some primal emotional level, that may be true. We believe something, and if you believe it strongly enough, you react. You're not dissecting facts within that moment. But when we start looking at systems, governments, and the tools of oppression, voodoo and our religious systems would have to have been enemy number one from the very beginning in terms of preventing us from gaining any self-empowering mindset. So we're going to talk about that primal fear, past, present, because it's still with us in many ways, particularly within our own community. We'll embrace almost anything before we will embrace voodoo. We will embrace crime. We will embrace drugs. We will embrace, we will hold conversation with the crackhead and the wino on the corner, but not the voodoo man, not the voodoo woman, not anyone who looks like they might be serious about their commitment to indigenous culture, practice, and tradition. And that is a deeply ingrained primal fear here in the South from the very beginnings of our nation. But it can be found all over, coast to coast, north to south, east to west. No one better, more qualified to speak to that than me, having lived north to south, east to west, coast to coast. So I know that we will accept almost anything in our community except indigenous thought. And the reasoning, the motivation behind that is fear. Fear of actual activity, fear of us doing something, fear of us really acting on what we say we believe. Because we can what's the word I'm looking for? We can sort of claim any doctrine, any religion. We know people of color who claim to be Jew and all other forms of ethnicities. And some of us sort of like it, some of us don't. You know, we all have our opinion about it. But people are pretty much free will to do as they choose in that regard. But when people truly claim indigenous thought, religion, philosophy, particularly as it relates to us, there's almost a immediate subconscious primal negative response to that. We either make it into a joke and somehow find a way to lessen its power, lessen its value. Many of you immediately, oh, well, I don't believe that. You know, I don't believe you decided to wear that outfit today, but how much value does that have, you know, on your life? No more than your lack of belief about what is factual about my culture and religion and tradition. But that's sort of a naturally, and natural is not a good word. That is a programmed natural response now. Almost immediate, almost subconscious, almost instantaneous. We either put up the I don't believe in that sign, or we lessen it, you know, by tying it right into Hollywood, media, movies, cinema, and not even from a documentary perspective, but from a fictional horror movie perspective, and a creative, imaginative perspective. But dare not look at it seriously as something that should be taken seriously. And when it is, the immediate response is fear. I remember back in my younger years when I still believed in love and relationships and was dating, and almost without any warning, the question of voodoo would be usually really close to the top. Are you going to work voodoo on me? Are you going to use voodoo on me? Some negative, stereotypical entryway into conversation would be used by referencing voodoo in a negative way. So that has not changed. It hasn't changed much over the centuries, over the decades. But it is in the process of transition. It's in a great flux now, and not because of any outright conscious planning from within our community, but as a result of people's lessening of faith and other practices and philosophies and traditions. So I think that greatly influences the now resurgent interest in voodoo, as well as other traditional African-based religious systems like Ifa, Setri, and the like. So I'm going to continue this conversation. I'm going to take a momentary break so that I can clean up some business here on my live radio show, which I'm actually doing while I'm filming this video. So I will be forward momentarily, giving thanks. Ashe.